Welcome to Cowgirl Up, the podcast dedicated to elevating your mindset. I'm your host, Lori Blickenstaff, certified mental performance coach at mentalgame101.com. So this week, I want to dive into our mindset surrounding feelings as well as the role that emotions play in this cycle. If you recall, last week we talked about some topics like gratitude and joy, and you might consider these to be good emotions or feelings. And then if I tell you that this week we're going to discuss fear, frustration, and despair, I'm guessing that your initial response would be that these are bad feelings. But ideally, we want to shift our mindset surrounding feelings and emotions so that rather than judging them as good or bad, we want to think of them more like feedback or data. So there's no such thing as a bad emotion or feeling, but it's sometimes the way that we interpret them or the behavior that we engage in based on our emotions that can cause problems for us. So I'm going to geek out on you a little bit today with the science, but I hope you'll bear with me because my goal is not for you to memorize or, internalize every single word, but simply to just become more aware so that we can do a better job at managing them. So first, let's look at the difference between feelings and emotions. So it starts with emotions, which are like the raw automatic response that we have to some stimuli or situation. And then our feelings are more how we interpret those emotions or the meaning we put to them. So if you remember, we've talked about that a cycle of, our thoughts create our feelings, which lead to our actions. Well, emotions kind of fit in there right just next to feelings. They're kind of like sister ideas. So they can both influence our actions, and they both have something to do with our thoughts once again. So as we work on controlling our thoughts, we're more likely to have healthier emotional responses and more constructive feelings based on those emotions. So here's an example. So imagine you're about to compete for the first time at a new high-stakes venue. As you approach the arena, you might automatically start to feel this emotion of fear. Well, as you stand there, you might consciously recognize the fear, and then there's a couple different ways you can interpret that. So if you interpret it as, oh no, that means I'm anxious because maybe I'm not prepared, well, then that is a feeling that is not going to serve you in your performance, right? But if you recognize the fear and instead interpret it as like awe or excitement for this amazing opportunity, well, that feeling is going to serve you better. So basically, emotions are the raw data that our body and brain just produce in response to a certain situation, while feelings are like our personal interpretation of those emotions. So just understanding this difference can just better help you navigate your emotional, headspace and respond in a more informed and intentional way. That's why this week's power statement is, I embrace my emotions and take control of my responses. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions, feedback, or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Email me at lori@mentalgame101.com.